welcome back from summer break. We are Graphic Policy Radio, the show that mixes comics and politics. And school is no longer out. School is back in. We always talk about how this is the show for where comics and politics meet. And this comic that we'll be discussing today, this comics anthology, is literally 100% the most on-brand thing that we could ever possibly feature, which is Mine, the comics anthology supporting Planned Parenthood. This is a comic collection that celebrates the amazing work of Planned Parenthood and personal empowerment. It includes stories about healthcare, personal experiences, and empowerment, done in genres like historical dramas, science fiction, fantasy, superhero, and satirical stories. And then joining me, your host today, Ilana, a.k.a. Ilana Brooklyn. Joining us, we'll be having Molly Jackson and Joseph Corallo to talk about this Kickstarter project, which you should all be backing. The last day to back it is September 15th. Mine features an impressive roster of creative talent of over 100 creators. We have major names like Neil Gaiman, Gail Simone, Mags Fasaggio, a friend of the show, and pretty much everybody awesome who we like to read, both of the current crop of creative talent and also some folks from yesteryear are all really chiming in and contributing amazing work for this project. So I want to thank our guests for joining me. Hi, Molly and Joseph.
Hi.
So I want to first just actually ask, how did this project come to be?
Well, it came to be. Joe and I were at a pizza shop just talking about comic mix and projects we wanted to work on, and we came upon the idea of doing an anthology. We didn't know what kind of anthology. We discussed a benefit book, and this all started back in 2015, where we
December 2015.
Yeah. We've been discussing a project for a really long time that we wanted to do a project together. We've known each other for a few years, and really wanted to do a project together. We're both columnists at Comic Mix. And Joe actually has a friend who works for Planned Parenthood. And it's a organization that we both wholeheartedly support, along with everyone at Comic Mix. This is an organization that we all support. So, Joe, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, so Molly and I kicked around a few different ideas, and some of which we might end up doing later on. But around March of 2016 is when we really got the ball rolling with Planned Parenthood. That's when we first had our first calls with them and started talking and moving up the chain and getting everything ready. And something that strikes some people as odd is that the election this past November actually grinded this project to a halt. We were going to be ready to go sooner, but what happened is, there was so much that Planned Parenthood has to do now because of this political environment that, we sort of had to step back for a bit, let them collect themselves before we were able to, really move forward. So I know a lot of people think this is probably a reaction to Trump, but we were planning on doing this before he was even the front runner for the primaries.
I love that. I mean, Planned Parenthood has been under attack since long before the election. So you guys have definitely been having this in the works for a long time. Makes a lot of sense. So I'm sorry, you said you work for Planned Parenthood? Are you on the nonprofit side of things, or are you a medical professional, or?
No, I have connections through Planned Parenthood. I did political campaign work for years. I worked on campaigns. I've worked at nonprofits. So I just know a lot of people in those circles. So, I've done the Iowa caucuses before. So.
It seems like you're somebody Brett and I should know. We both are come out of doing political work. I'm particularly involved in New York politics myself. But by the way, tomorrow, guys, everyone go and vote in the New York primary. I think there's also a primary in Virginia tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. There's probably some other states that have off-year elections. The primary is so important.
I think so.
Yeah.
They're also. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, a lot of municipalities are having primaries around now. And speaking of, the primaries and voting tomorrow, I actually once got to give a ride to Bill de Blasio somewhere, and I was playing the Velvet Underground in my car, and he commented on it. He was just like, "Is that the Velvet Underground?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Yeah, you really are a New Yorker." So.
Oh my God, no! He's such an
really
extrovert. But so are his kids. We've totally run into kids at really underground metal shows. Like the Blasio kids have good taste in music. Like I definitely approve of the musical taste of the family. Often, but not always the politics, but often enough. Proud New Yorker, indeed. That's fabulous. Yeah. So that's really exciting. I mean, I definitely have seen a great increase in the number of fundraisers that are being done by folks in the arts and in comics in particular for groups that would largely be described as being part of the, quote, resistance since the election, and it's definitely become a lot more common. Right after the election, we saw a lot of artists doing individual things where they would say, hey, I just made this limited print. All the proceeds from this are going to go to, named progressive organization, usually a really big one. And then they would sort of do it in these one-offs like that. So what was the desire to sort of do the anthology as a different process where you'd have different writers contributing, different artists contributing, and sort of curating it?
Well, I think that both of us, both Joe and I, wanted to get a lot of voices out there. I mean, people picture the classic liberal and they have their one image, but diversity in that message is so important. Having so many different people, voices, perspectives contribute to that message just makes it stronger. It just shows, we're all different, but together we're standing in support of this organization. We're all standing together. I mean, there are plenty of guys who say that, Planned Parenthood does nothing for them, but we have plenty of guys in this in this anthology that may never use the services of Planned Parenthood, but recognize its importance.
But, that's so crazy because every guy who ever has sex with people who aren't also guys, anyone who has sex pretty much is benefiting from the services that Planned Parenthood provides. If people are having sex with women, regardless of the woman's assigned, at birth gender, they're definitely benefiting from access to, birth control and prophylactics and everything else that Planned Parenthood provides.
One thing we've noticed from this past election in particular is that people often don't think about how they benefit, on the side, unless they're directly benefiting, unless they're seeing the benefit themselves firsthand, they don't recognize it. There was that politician who said, why are men paying for prenatal care?
Yeah.
Well, because you want to have a kid, then you want to be born. You want to have little voters come out and support you. They need to come from somewhere.
Those same guys are the same. Yep. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say those guys are the same guys who feel that they should have a say in what a woman does with her body, though. So.
Yes, exactly. And it's also just the point, I don't think men understand, people didn't used to have sex that much. And that was really shitty. If they'd like to go back to a world where you can't have sex whenever you want, that's not fun. They don't realize how much the world shifted with the advent of the birth control pill. And when
all they
condoms
care about
became
is
more accessible. Yeah, exactly. It's just, but I also don't think that the way we talk about it in most spaces makes men see how these things are of their interest. I don't think any guy who needs you to tell them that they need to care about women's health or else they're not deserving of having sex with women is an asshole. But the reality is that's a lot of guys. But even the asshole guys need to understand the only reason girls have sex with you is because they can use condoms and pills. That is why. That's the only reason you get laid. But anyway.
No, but yeah, that's, we wanted to have a lot of perspectives because of all the different, services that Planned Parenthood provides. We also wanted to do a book that we wanted to break up the book into historical stories, political stories, stories that directly relate to Planned Parenthood and the services they provide, as well as some like fantastical stories, a little bit of superhero stuff, a little bit of sci-fi and fantasy. Like what was it? Stuart Moore and June Brigman did this awesome 3-page story that's a far future story with cats in space that are living on a spaceship, and they have to bring up the Planned Parenthood protocol to figure out how to stop having these litters of kittens.
Oh my God, I love everything about that. For our listeners, can you just tell them real quickly who June Brigman is, in case they don't know?
June Brigman co-created Power Pack with Louis Simonson, which is coming back in a one-shot.
Coming back. Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Power Pack,
oh
Devin Grayson, who is also doing a story with us.
Also contributing.
And her story is adorable. It's about all these different teens and all sorts of teens from all backgrounds basically saying different kinds of myths about sex and getting that all debunked. So it's an adorable story.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
How did you guys feel about
she's bringing back.
Yeah. Power Pack, I love it. You guys have like just a huge list of names, both for folks who kind of come from superhero comics, but also folks who kind of come from the more like literary world. You have folks who are from the newspaper strip world of comics as well. It's really a big gamut of talent. How did you guys go about curating who the contributors would be and getting them to work for? I mean, they must get a lot of asks for contributing comics to good causes. Like this is a particularly time sensitive and an urgent one, but I'd love to sort of hear how that approach went for you guys as well.
Well, and this is where working with Comic Mix comes into hand. I don't know if anyone knows the Comic Mix team, but we have an amazing stable of columnists who have been in comics forever, and then Joe and I. So we have, Mindy Newell, first woman to write Wonder Woman. We have Martha Thomas's, creator of Dakota North. We have John Ostrander, who helped create Amanda Waller and Oracle. We have
he's a genius. Suicide Squad, he's just a genius.
Absolutely.
Not to mention Mike Gold and Glenn Hellman are the names behind Comic Mix, and they've both been in the industry for years. The amount of people, we got Denny O'Neil. We just have to send out a quick email to the columnists, and we had Mike do a lot of the asks of the people at Comic Mix, and so we had big names right from the start, just within our own house.
One of the things we also... Oh, sorry, I was just going to say, one of the things we had done was, try to do some of the bigger asks early on. We were able to lock in Neil Gaiman really early, and it was really easy to make asks to certain people by being like, well, this is legitimate because Planned Parenthood and Neil Gaiman, and both Molly and myself have a whole network of comic creators that we know or kind of know from just being in the scene for years. So, that's why we were able to get some of these names. Like Mags is a friend. I absolutely adore Mags. I made sure I asked her very early on. She's going to be doing a story with Brian Talbot. And for people who aren't familiar with Brian Talbot, he is an Eisner Award-winning artist who's worked on Sandman. And on top of that, he's also done stuff like The Tale of One Bad Rat, which I highly recommend to people. It's a very dark, it's a very dark, personal type story about a young girl running away from home that Dark Horse put out years ago, but it's absolutely incredible. And, Brian Talbot, he was someone that Mike Gold was able to help us coordinate with. And I really thought that Mags, as an Eisner nominee, should be working with more Eisner talent, so I wanted to make sure that would happen.
I love it.
Yeah,
I mean, you guys played matchmaker a lot between the artists and the writers?
Yes.
Yes.
That sounds like a blast.
Well, yeah, there were some that I was really, really happy with. It took a while, and we all sort of agreed to present Neil with Mark Wheatley, and that worked out. They had actually never worked on a comic together before, and Neil has wanted to work with him for decades. So, doing little things like that was really fun. I was able to pair Lila Sturgis with Spee Monster from the Beyond anthologies, and that was incredible. I'm so happy with that, and seeing what they're doing together.
Yeah, totally.
Jody Hauser from Valiant, pairing her with Sean Von Gorman, who was behind Toe Tag Riot. Sean's been as a friend of both of ours, and we just think they'll be a great pairing.
Yeah, totally. They both are actually understand young people stuff really well.
Exactly. Well, Sean's a big kid. He's not really an adult.
But yeah, we were able
when I think about comics.
One of the other ones that we were.
Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry. One of the other ones that I'm particularly proud of was pairing Louise Simonson with Tommy Lee Edwards, because they're both big fans of each other, and knowing that they're fans of each other, it was an after the fact sort of thing. We didn't realize that they were.
Yeah, Louise Simonson is
fans of each
one
other.
of the best X-Men writers, Marvel stable of creators that has ever been, and I just forgot his name, but he does the art for Mother Panic, which is really good. Tommy Lee Edwards, right?
Yeah, Tommy Lee Edwards. Yeah, no, he's incredible. And Louise Simonson, as much as I adore Chris Claremont, and I think he did incredible things, reading some of those X Factor issues that Louise did with Walt doing the art and the characterization and dealing with the young X characters, Boom Boom and Richter and all of that. She handled all of that so well. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. It seems like you have a lot of, I know Gerard Way is on board, right? You guys have a lot of folks who have done a lot of work featuring young characters. I mean, comics often do in general, but it does seem to be a sort of through line through some of the artists who I can think of that you've mentioned so far. But yeah, those are some really great team-ups.
He's going to be with Becky Cloonan again.
Ooh. Oh, that's great. They're both goth as hell, and I like that. I like that match. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So yeah, what is the editorial process like for you guys in terms of working with the creators? I know that with the particular kind of political content you have, things like representing information accurately, really matters with health issues as well. And how do you guys handle the content from an editorial standpoint when it comes to both the creative process and also things like accuracy and sensitivity and things like that?
We've been very, very, very careful with how we approach each story, where we've had the creators been sending us synopsis before we go into even a script, make sure that we don't have one of our biggest concerns was that we were going to get a lot of stories about, very similar types. But one thing we've been really lucky with is all of the creators have been very sensitive to that and some of the nature of these stories has reflected that. We're not seeing anyone take too much creative license with the facts. It's been, for October Chrysaris, and I'm butchering her last name, story, she sent us detailed, sources. We've seen that with a lot of detail, a lot of sources, people showing us where they're getting their information. And I feel like we've lucked out. This has been a very, very lucky process.
That's cool, though. People are like straight up just documenting sources and sending that to you. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, we had some of that. We'd have people also have been very open about asking us for information. So we've had multiple contributors be like, I want to do this story. Do you have any information on this? Planned Parenthood did provide us with, a bunch of easy-to-send, condensed sort of pamphlet-like PDFs on some information. Some of it I had to, Google and just do some research myself before sending the information off. One of our contributors is doing a story about, HIV/AIDS screenings, and when Planned Parenthood started doing that, so I did some research on that for them just to make sure it was all accurate. We've also really been lucky in terms of having contributors who are sensitive about these issues beyond just what's on the page, but we've had a lot of, contributors who, are cis-het white guys or passing as such who have, made it a point to pair with someone who isn't and things like that, which has also been helpful. We've also had a lot of people make it very clear that, they want to make sure that, people are being represented in this book. So we have a lot of contributors who are on the same page as us with that. We have, we really haven't had issues with too many scripts in terms of, people using, language that would exclude a lot of people. A lot of it's very, inclusive and trans inclusive and stuff like that too. We look at that stuff and we consider that when we're editing scripts. Some of it, like people referring to, God or something like that and talking about their religion, like that's, if that's the character and it's true to the character, we've had a couple of scripts. Yeah. We've had a couple of scripts where it's like, if that's true to the character and that's part of the story, as long as they're, not using offensive language or anything like that, that's okay, for the story. So yeah, and even then, we haven't had that much of that come up.
No, and I mean, Joe and I have had some afternoons where we're sitting and discussing a story where we're going back and forth about it and kind of batting that ball back and forth, playing each other's devil's advocate, making sure that we're covering all the angles as best we can.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. It sounds like, you guys have a really amazing team of folks you've put together, and that process looks like a really smart one. Have you guys participated in any anthologies like this before, whether it was for a nonprofit or just on your own?
What was it? I've only written for some other anthologies. I was in Geeks Out Presents Power. I did, what was it? Margins Publishing did a digital zine. Our Hearts Still Beat after Orlando. So I wrote a short comic for that. And I also have a piece in This Nightmare Kills Fascists, which was successful on Kickstarter a couple months ago or so. And so I have a 10-pager in that I'm really excited about. what was it? It's all sort of like these like far left horror stories in the book.
Oh wow, I knew that.
So like this, it's really great. My story is about fracking unleashing an ancient evil.
I mean, it's totally accurate. That's not even
a
horror story. That's real. It is.
And there's a lot of incredible talent in that. That's an anthology that Matt Miner and Eric Palicki put together.
Oh wow, Matt's fabulous.
So yeah,
and
Matt
they're
is
also
fabulous.
Mine.
Yes, we browbeat them both
right.
into being in this.
I saw that one of the levels of sponsorship gets you some of the new Guar comics in addition, correct?
Yeah, and Matt's doing his story with Eric Donovan. So really excited about that one.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I also forgot, and I need to stress this pairing too because we're all really proud of this one for the book, Gabby Rivera and Brittany Williams.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Gabby Rivera, who's writing America, and is amazing, and Brittany Williams from the Hellcat run and from Goldie Vance. Those are two really great comics.
Yeah, and a shout out to Aria at Geeks Out. I'm not only shouting this out because I told her she should listen to this, and I can quiz her later, but she did help in terms of facilitating me getting in touch with Brittany, and which allowed for that pairing to happen when it did. So thank you, Aria.
Yeah, and Aria is also in the book.
Yes, with Marion
cool.
Churchland. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love Marion Churchland's art. That's the screensaver on my iPad that's currently malfunctioning for me. Some of her art from Arclight.
Yeah, we basically made this anthology for you. So
It's clear. I mean, I as someone who has used the services of Planned Parenthood and who also appreciates the creative combination of writers and artists that you've gathered together for this, I am particularly interested and excited in this anthology that you've been putting together for me.
We're glad
I'm looking forward to purchasing it. Absolutely. One of the questions I also wanted to ask is from the nonprofit side of things. I worked for an immigrant community organization until about a month or so ago when I started a new job running trainings for one of the big progressive training organizations. After the election, we started to see different artists would just do this sort of pop-up like, hey, I'm doing playing a concert on Wednesday. All the proceeds are going to go to Make the Road New York. Or they would, Molly Crabapple made a T-shirt that you could buy that's amazing, and that money was going to us. That was, all of her volition. How did you guys go about approaching Planned Parenthood to partner on this? Because I know that there was a lot of different artist-led fundraisers coming to them, but this is sort of a bigger project. I'd love to know how it's been working with them and how did you guys approach them? Because everybody wants more money, but there's also a certain amount of commitment and effort required on the nonprofit side to do this well.
Yeah, with that, what we originally wanted to do was a commercial co-venture. And what ended up happening was exactly what you're talking about. Like, things got crazy. And because of the election, because it was all hands on deck and all of that, we ended up having to move to a logo agreement where they would not be as hands-on, but we could still do the project, which was, what we really wanted to do.
Uh-huh.
We'd love to go back and do a commercial co-venture or something like that in the future when things calm down a little bit, but as long as we were able to make it very clear and work with Planned Parenthood in some capacity on this, that was the important part. So we had to, go with an agreement that wasn't quite as hands-on as we would have liked, but still allows us to do the project.
I do want to say that I think this, and, Love is Love, which is another anthology that raised funds. I think this is something that organizations should look at. It's a great way for people to share stories and facts that otherwise get lost in the shuffle. That I think when people see our book and see some of these touching stories, not just the historical stories of days gone by, but, you know, the firsthand experiences that some of our creators have, like Kelly Fernandez, it's one of those experiences that I think will shape someone's thoughts and feelings about this organization, and I think other organizations could benefit from this. But it does take time and commitment, not just from the creators and the editorial side, but from the nonprofit themselves. And I think Planned Parenthood really wanted to be more heavily involved, but, you know, our political climate has just made that impossible.
Yeah, it's really hard. I think some of the biggest ways that artists can support nonprofits is to just move things forward on their own. Every time someone would tag Make the Road New York on Twitter saying they were going to, you know, raise money for us by selling, like if somebody made like a beautiful piece of like handmade furniture, I was like, yeah, I'll retweet that. Thank you. Like, I don't have anything to do with this. You made it. We'll retweet it. Thank you for giving us the money. Because managing the project really can be hard. But I think there would be it would be great for, you know, some of the small nonprofits that folks don't really know the names of, who might not have national names, but who have really important missions to think about partnering with artists to do fundraise, to create products like that people can buy that benefit them and feature the artist's work. But I also don't think that nonprofits should be in the business of asking artists to work for free, right? So do you guys have any thoughts about how do you navigate that?
Well, for this particular project, part of going through Kickstarter was so we could raise enough funds that we could cover paying some artists that might need it. You know, there's a lot of people, you know, like Neil Gaiman doesn't need the money, but there are some struggling artists that wanted to be involved in this book. And even though it's not much, by raising this money, we were at least able to have that as an option. And I think when dealing with books like this, if you're able to raise the money and offer something to contributors that need it, even if it's not much, luckily by doing it on Kickstarter, it's not taking away from the proceeds of the book sales. So all of those can go.
That's so cool.
You know, so yeah, so that's why, you know, we really, even though we hit goal, we really want some, you know, we really want to keep it going. I mean, you know, some of our contributors, you know, are not, you know, they're artists that live project to project.
They're comic
creators.
Oh,
yeah. That's fabulous. I'm glad that. Yeah, it's, you know, I found myself after the election, I'd always been telling nonprofit organizations that you should not ask folks to work, especially artists, to work for free because they're so marginal as it is. And, you know, they're struggling to get by as badly as our organizations are. But then after the election, you know, all these artists were doing it of their own volition, and I felt like we would be dumb if we weren't putting it out there that, you know, that the immigrant community organization that I was working for could not just use like the money, but like could actually use art made by artists for our posters, our signs, things of that nature. So I sort of shifted the way I spoke about it publicly to say that, not saying like, hey, we're looking for you to come and do work for free, but I sort of put it at like, artists, if you're looking for ways you can support an immigrant community organization, talk to me because I'd love to connect you with XYZ. So that's sort of how I put it to make it seem like I wasn't asking for free work, but that if people were looking for a way to get to use their talents further in the struggle for social change, that they could do that by talking to us.
Exactly. Right. It's one of those things that, you know, I worked at a Girls Inc. for a number of years, and I was always amazed with how many people would come out of the woodwork and say, I want to contribute.
Hello? I think I lost you there for a second. Mike, can you hear?
Away from people with those skill sets to help.
Oh,
There
sorry,
she is.
Tina, we lost you, like, right in the middle of your sentence.
Hello?
You're still... No.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. So what I was saying was this is a great way for people who can't afford to help to use those skill sets to help, you know, and be a part of this resistance that we've started out of necessity.
Yeah. You know, people definitely, you know, are looking for creative ways to use their talents. One of the things that I think would be cool for you guys coming out of the project is, I know that having really well illustrated social media content is really valuable for nonprofit organizations. It would be cool if Planned Parenthood was able to use, if there was like individual panels or something along those lines in their own social media resources from the comic after it launches. That would be really cool.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, we just want to make sure all the creators still own the rights to all of their, you know, creations. But yeah, there's certainly some people we'd be able to work something out with, which would be good.
Oh, that's a good point too. That's a good point too, the creative rights. Well, you know, you guys are really close to making your Kickstarter, or have you made it by now? Earlier today, it looked like you were super close.
Yes, we're actually about to break through 103%.
That's amazing. Do you have any tips for folks who want to do Kickstarters for progressive causes, nonprofits and stuff like that, in the comics medium or in the other arts? Since you guys have had a successful Kickstarter, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks. Be really sure you want to do a Kickstarter because it's a lot of work. And write a lot of tweets. Twitter is an amazing resource if you use it correctly and use it a lot.
Yeah, and there are different sites where you can, you know, preload tweets and all of that, so you're definitely going to want to, you know, schedule things in advance. You want to get your ducks in a row. You want to have, you have to have something in terms of some finished art and all of that available for people to look at. A high-quality video helps, and keep it under 3 minutes.
And a big shout-out
yeah.
to Burning Camera Productions, who edited together this video for us.
Yes, and also press hits. You know, you have to start reaching out in advance and figuring that stuff out early so you can have press and interviews lined up early on, because you don't want to launch it and then ask for people. You have to have things going right from, you know, weeks beforehand.
Yeah.
Those are great tips. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I actually didn't do the normal thing at the start of the show that Brett's always so good about, which is asking you guys how each of you got into comics in the first place. But I'd be very curious to hear that now.
Well, technically I'm not in comics. I got involved with Comic Mix actually through a site that I started with a friend of mine, Andrea, called Intergeek Here, where we wrote about pop culture and geek culture, as we called it. It was we started the site because we'd gone to San Diego Comic-Con and we'd gone to the end of the con Buffy musical sing-along, and I was watching everyone scream horrible things at Dawn, the character. And yes, Dawn's not the best character, but the things people were saying, I just decided was inappropriate. And I wanted to tell the world that I thought it was inappropriate. So I convinced Andrea to start a website with me, also with my friend Rick, and it kind of just snowballed from there. So, but I've actually never published a comic. I've just written about them and judged other people about them.
Oh, yes.
So you edited my comic.
Yeah.
Yes. I've edited
I've
edited comic. I've edited Joe's comic along with Robbie Barrett, Saturn's Call. I've edited issue 2, which will be coming out shortly.
Yeah.
Oh, who's the publisher on that?
Oh, I'm self-publishing it for now, but we're shopping it around.
Cool. So is it on Comixology, or how do we pick it up?
Well, we're going to put it up on all of that soon. We just want to get it finished, the second issue with Robbie, and then we're going to start getting it out there. But we got written up in Sci-Fi Wire from someone picking it up at FlameCon. So that was really cool.
Oh, wow. So tell me more. What is this comic?
It's a bunch of queer kids that find out that they have strange powers that they can't control. You know, they're really trying to figure themselves out, and they all end up coming together basically to protect themselves. And it's cutesy, adorable. Saturn's Call. Robbie Barrett has a very sort of cute, Adventure Timey type style with watercolors, and it's great. And he hand draws and hand watercolors everything because he's insane. But yeah, it's
like
great.
It's
I'll hook you
hit.
up with I'll hook you up with the first issue. I'll send it to you.
Oh, thank you so much. But I was also just going to say, like, even if you hadn't edited that comic, being a comics critic absolutely counts. So I'd love to know, like, what got you into comics in the first place.
Actually, you know, growing up, I read a lot of Archie, but I don't think I really got into comics until Buffy actually came out in season 8 in comics. That's what got me into a comic book store, and from there I just kind of delved in as I found things. But I grew up very much a reader. My mother was a librarian, so I was always reading. I would turn around and read and read and read and read, and then read some more. So it was a natural evolution for me as a reader, not just to read prose, but to read comics. Even now, I jump between the two. I'm always reading something, but coming in as a later comics fan, I definitely gravitated more to indie comics than to, say, DC and Marvel, because of that entire slog of back history that you have to get through in order to really be a hardcore fan, so to speak. But
so making sure, so you were a Buffy fan, and you were like, oh my gosh, there's going to be another season of Buffy, but it's in comics form. I better go to the comic store. Is that an accurate summary?
Definitely.
I am so
Yep, Buffy was my gateway.
I thought there'd be like a million of you. I thought that there'd be a million of you, and I haven't met that many. And so I'm really glad to know that that was your path into comics, because I just would have thought that would have been a much bigger inroad for folks. It seemed like a perfect setup.
There were definitely a lot of us. I know a few other people who, like me, went to comics or back to comics for Buffy. I mean, growing up, I read Archie, I read Little Lulu, and I read Too Much Coffee Man, which, as as disconnected as those two sound, I'm talking over the span of 20-some-odd years. So there was definitely a point where it was appropriate for me to be reading Too Much Coffee Man. But Buffy brought me into the comic book store, whereas Archie you could get at a newsstand, and Too Much Coffee Man you can find in bookstores. Buffy brought me into a comic book store, brought me into Amok Time on Long Island. I still love those guys. I wrote an ode to them when I finally moved off Long Island. So they're my comic book shop, even though I don't go there very often.
They're a legendary one. I have not been, and I really should. I go to Long Island a fair amount because my in-laws all live there, all 80 of them, and I have not been, and I really should go to that store. It's quite legendary.
Go.
Yep,
Go.
that and Fourth World. I love Fourth World. But also Shannon Wheeler is in mine. Too Much Coffee Man.
Yes, Shannon Wheeler is in mine. Yes. Yeah, so some of this book is really just us being like, oh, my God, let's see if this person will say yes. Let's see if this person will say yes. Like, we cornered Cliff Chiang at one con, and he said yes. And then when I saw him again at Book Expo America, he was at a table with Brian Azzarello, and he just turned to him and goes, hey, you want to do this with me? And Brian goes, yeah. And that's how we got Brian Azzarello. And I was just like, what?
Yeah, there was a lot of that. I mean, Gabby Rivera's in the book because I desperately wanted Gabby Rivera to be in the book. Rachel Pollack was one of the first people I asked to be in this book because I absolutely adore Rachel, and she needs to be in more comics. So, yeah. I mean, I curate, I helped to curate some Doom Patrol people like Rachel Pollack and Tom Payer, and Richard Case was in early, obviously Gerard Way. So like so I'm happy with all these Doom Patrol people, but like I really wanted Rachel in this book and made sure she was in this book. I wanted Caitlin R. Kiernan in the book and spent, a good amount of time figuring that out and talking with her and getting her on board. So yeah, a lot of it was also just like, we want these people in it, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. And some of it was luck. I mean, we ended up being on a panel at Icon with Alicia Martinez, and now she's in the book.
She is so fabulous. I feel like she's one of those talents, and I've heard this on the show, who just, like, people don't recognize that they've seen so much of her work and how, like, just, like, classic her style is.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, she's fantastic. We have T. Franklin in the book, who, is big off, Bingo Love and being in Love is Love and all of that. And she, is also someone we have to give a shout out to because very early on she wanted to be in the book, and very early on she was like, let me talk to other women of color and, people about being in this book. And have you talked to this person? Have you talked to this person? Do you need me to reach out to this person? She was very helpful, and, really have to give her props for, wanting to help us and wanting to make the book as good as it could be.
Cool.
And then, we lucked into Barbara Brandon Croft, who's the first nationally syndicated African-American female cartoonist ever.
Yeah.
And her father created
fabulous.
Luther. But we went to an exhibit she curated about her father, and she just happened to be there. We walked in randomly on the last day, and now she's in the book. So some of this was just pure. That was a pure luck. We walked in at the right time. So it's been a crazy experience.
Well, I just think this is going to be an amazing anthology with the talent that you assembled and the pairings that you guys have done with the talent there, and obviously for this cause as well. And I know that there's people who I know who will pick it up for the Planned Parenthood side of it who might not have really read comics before. So I think it's something where both the comics reading public and the nonprofit world can really gain a lot from each other.
Yeah, definitely. And there's enough names that are either outside of comics or known beyond comics that I think will help, catch the eye and stuff like that. Like, I also love that Frank Conniff from Mystery Science Theater 3000's in this. So, stuff like that.
Yuri Lowenthal, Amber Benson, Mara Wilson.
Mm-hmm. So how can folks go and support the Kickstarter? Tell them where to go right now.
Go to Kickstarter.com and type in Mine Planned Parenthood, and you will get right to our page. This Kickstarter is going until 11 p.m. EST on Friday, September 15th. So you have plenty of time to go and back. We still have some of our limited rewards. including rewards from Matt Miner, Eric Palicki, a limited edition Kickstarter exclusive print from Mark Wheatley.
We're actually out of the Eric ones now.
Oh, the Eric one is gone. Okay, that happened very recently.
The Eric one's gone, and the Mags one is gone.
Yeah, the Max Adagio one flew. We still have some digital commissions from Jude Vigance.
Yeah,
so if you want a digital commission,
Yeah, and there's plenty of book plates, and there's an unlimited amount of books signed by us.
Yes. If you want our autographs, which I still am surprised by, we are willing to sign book plates from here to the end of time.
Yeah, so we have all of that. Also, follow Comic Mix on Facebook and Twitter, where we are constantly telling people about mine. So there's absolutely no way that if you follow us on Twitter that you won't be handed a link to this Kickstarter.
Yes, that is very true.
Even at 3 a.m.
Yes, we are tweeting
really
24/7.
And I feel like there was some reference on the Kickstarter page, and I might be mistaken, about how to help make sure that this book ends up in your local libraries so that other folks who really need it can have access.
Yes, one of our reward levels is Mine for You and Mine for a Library. So if you back at that level, we will send a copy of this book to a library. Now, like I said, my mother's a librarian. Joe's mother also works in a library. And it's something that is very important to us to make sure that this book gets other places. And one of the libraries we want to donate to is definitely the Library of Congress, so it's going to be around forever.
That's very cool. And I think one of your donation levels also meant you could send one to a member of the Senate.
Yes, we have donation levels to. You can send one to We'll send one to your congressman. We'll send one to your representative, your senator. And so people, especially in red states, we'll if you back it, we'll send 20 copies to Paul Ryan if that's what you want. So, 20, 100, 3,000, your choice.
They have to pledge that amount of books.
Yes.
But yeah.
Yes. So back that level, and we'll send them.
That's really cool, guys. Well, thank you for joining us on the show again. And can you just let our folks who are listening find out where they can find you all online? On Twitter.
Oh, so you can follow Comic Mix at Comic Mix, COMICMIX. If you want to follow me, I'm Wilder Owens on Twitter. You can also follow me at IGH Insider, which is the Insert Geek here Twitter. And Joe?
Cool.
Yes. Also like Comic Mix on Facebook.
Yes, like Comic Mix on Facebook.
I'm just Joe Corallo on Twitter. I also write occasionally for IGH, so you can also find some of my stuff there. I also write for Geeks Out, so also follow Geeks Out on Twitter and Facebook, and also Geek.com. I usually write at least a few pieces a month, so also follow Geek.com.
Yep. And Joe and I both have columns
us
every week. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you have columns every week at Comics Mix?
Yes, we're also columnists at Comic Mix. Joe's column goes up on Tuesdays and mine goes up on Wednesdays.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thanks, you guys. I appreciate your joining us, and I'm looking forward to reading this myself and checking out Saturn's, one more time?
Saturn's Call,
as well as mine, of course, as soon as I'm able to get my hands on a new copy of it. So thank you so much, and hopefully we'll get to have you guys on again with a different awesome project sometime in the future. And I'm looking forward to being able to get my hands on a copy of mine and announcing really loudly that it's mine, and then sharing it with other people too.
Great. Thank you so much.
For having
really
us.
Appreciate it. Yep.
Good night.
Good night.
And for our listeners, if you came on late to the show, you can listen to the whole podcast from the beginning on our website, graphicpolicy.com. It'll be loaded up on our iTunes in a couple hours. It'll be on SoundCloud and Stitcher. And we'll also be able to get the whole podcast online at graphicpolicy.com. You can find me online all the time at Elana, ELANA _Brooklyn on Twitter is my Twitter handle. Tweeting far too often. Graphic Policy is on Twitter too, Graphic Policy. And we'll be back next week. I think next week we're going to be covering Defenders. It'll be a spoilers-free episode. We'll just be covering the first half of the season. And thank you for everyone who was patient with us during our brief August hiatus. But we are back in black, and we are really appreciative of your listenership and all your support. And we can't wait to talk to you again next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Again, Graphic Policy Radio at graphicpolicy.com is our website. The whole podcast will be there, ready to go whenever you guys are ready. See you next week.
Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.